Hey, Driven Autism Dads, this is Kyle Jetzel. I want to tell you a little bit about a guy that I worked with a few years ago. So a few years ago, I got a call from a guy who was having some struggles with his son, some disciplinary struggles. And we chatted a little bit about some different strategies he could implement. We talked about some ways to create some discipline in his life. And, I thought it was a pretty good chat. I thought things were going pretty well. And I was hopeful that we were going to be able to help this gentleman and his son, lower stress and create a happier world. Well, towards the end of the conversation, he said to me, "You know what, Kyle? I think this is just a phase he's going through. He's just hit puberty. That's when everything seemed to ramp up, and I'm hoping he'll just grow out of it." That's what he said. And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you keep my information. If he doesn't grow out of it, or if things continue to escalate as far as his behaviors and, you continue to have these problems, I want you to reach out to me and we'll reconvene, see what we can do at that point." And so we kind of finished the call, and I'm going to tell you now what I didn't tell him. Sometimes I wish I say things because I know it. Sometimes I don't say them because they sound like I'm trying to be mean or pushy or hateful. But I'm going to tell you what I should have told him, or I won't say should have told him. I didn't tell him, but I think everybody needs to know it. And that's this: hope is not a strategy. I was reminded of this because I went out of town for a couple of days this past week, and as I was leaving, my daughter and a couple of my sons said, "You know what, Dad, we're going to have the house spotless when you get home." And I said, "You don't have to do that. I'm not expecting you guys to clean the whole house while I'm gone." But they were, motivated at the moment, and they said, no, when you get home, we're going to have a spotless house, right? So I went on my little event, and I ended up driving home from the event a little bit early, maybe a couple hours earlier than they thought. And I came into a house that was not only not spotless, it was dirtier than when I left. And by dirtier, I don't mean it was dirty. The kids aren't dirty people. They're just messy. You know how kids are. Leave things here. There was, you're going to laugh at this. My daughter had 8 pair of shoes downstairs. So there's a couple places she can leave her shoes when she's not wearing them. One is up in her room. One is in the garage. We have a big giant rack in the garage where kids can hang all their shoes. So there's a couple places they can put them. Where we don't really want them to be is all over the floor, all over the downstairs. My son had 5 pairs of shoes. I don't know how they go through 5 pairs and 8 pairs of shoes in 2.5 days. I don't know how they do that, but they did. And when I got home, they were surprised. I got home a little early. I kind of surprised them. I think they were kind of disappointed in themselves, but they didn't say anything to me because I didn't think they didn't want to bring attention to the fact that not only had they not cleaned the house, it was in worse shape. And it was funny to me because I really didn't say anything to them. I just started cleaning and got a few things cleaned up and piled up their shoes and asked them for their help, and they did. But it reminded me of a few years ago, I came across a fellow by the name of Jordan Peterson. He's written a book called 12 Rules for Life. If you haven't read that, I highly recommend it. Jordan Peterson, you can find him on YouTube and Facebook and all kinds of different places. He's a great speaker, and he just talks about a lot of things, really. But this one thing in particular that struck me a few years ago was when he said, "You know what? When you don't address things, they don't get better." He said, as a matter of fact, when you don't address things, they generally, and that's most of the time, generally get worse. And he said, if you don't believe me, leave your house unattended for a week or a month and watch what happens when you come back, right? Even after a month, your house will start to degrade. If after a year, there'll be weeds everywhere. Things start to go bad when you don't address those things, right? When you don't give upkeep to things, they don't work. And this goes for anything that requires upkeep. Relationships. If you're just sitting back hoping your relationship gets better with your spouse, hope is not a strategy. And not doing anything will make it worse. If you're sitting back, and in this case, this gentleman said, I hope he grows out of it. It's puberty. He didn't. A year later, a little bit over a year later, I think 13 months to be exact, so a year and 1 month later, he reached out to me and things were much worse. And he wanted to go through those strategies again. We had to restart everything. But now it took extra time, it took extra effort because his son his behaviors had escalated beyond what they were when I first chatted with him. The point being, here's the deal. Hope is not a strategy. If you're hoping things get better, generally they don't. If you're hoping your relationship with your spouse gets better, generally it won't. If you're hoping you can leave things unattended, your home, your cars, everything that you value, everything you should value in your life will take upkeep. Very few things can you just set them to the side and not expect them to degrade. And if you've got a child on the spectrum and you're hoping they grow out of it, I'm going to caution you. Hope is not a strategy. And sitting back and watching and not addressing things that you see, it's easier to address things when they're at a small basis and, nip them in the bud, so to speak, than it is to wait until they become major issues. And that's generally how major issues happen. It's not, these kids of ours don't typically, well, some of them do go from 0 to 100, but generally it's small, simple behaviors that grow and grow and grow. I've got one member of my insiders group who, well, I won't go into that, but the whole point of my message today is this. Hope is not a strategy. If you want things to get better, but you're not willing to face them and address them and work at them, they will not get better. And in most cases, like anything in life, it'll get worse. Things degrade over time. I wish you could leave your home for a year and come back and it would be in better shape than it was when you left. I wish you could sit back and not chat with your spouse, not solve problems, not manage issues in your home, and sit back and do nothing, and then a year later you reconnect and everything's a lot better. But that's not the way it works, and you know that, and I know that. And it's a harsh thing to kind of come out and just absolutely say it, but we all know it, right? I'm just saying what we all know, and I'm saying pay attention. So that's my message for today. Hope is not a strategy. If you're hoping they'll grow out of it, they won't. Very rarely, never have I seen in my experience working with hundreds of families who have kids on the autism spectrum, has not doing anything helped. So that's my message for today. Take it for what it's worth. If there's anything I can do for you, let me know. Let me know in the comments and give me feedback. I'd love to be helpful however I can. Thanks a lot and have a great day. Bye-bye.